record the session.
Do I share screen, Embry?
Okay, so I think I'll just start and then you can share, okay? So, welcome to the third session of our day. And so far, I'm loving the presentations and the discussions that we are bringing to this summit. And our third speaker is Dr. Noor Trong. And she is a holistic health expert, clinical pharmacist, mindfulness, kindness, leadership strategist, dedicated to transforming burnout into breakthrough for healthcare professionals and heart-centered entrepreneurs. Founder of KN Health Consulting, she brings almost 23 plus years of expertise in clinical practice, business development, and integrative wellness. And she is also recognized as top 50 pharmacy leader and Texas Kindness Ambassador. She blends science and soul to mentor leaders in building impactful values-driven business. Her evidence-based framework helps professionals lead with clarity, courage, compassion, and creating a ripple effect of leading kindness. So let's welcome Dr. Nu. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
happy Saturday. Not sure where's everyone joining us today.
Yeah. So you will be sharing the presentation. You can start sharing uh, the screen.
Yes. Let me know if you're able to see it.
Yeah, we can see.
Yes. Um, is it better on this view? Is okay, or do I need to go on the bigger
The bigger one would be better if you just do the full scale.
okay, slideshow then? Like that?
Yes, I think
Okay.
if you just do the normal presentation because it's also showing your notes.
Let's see.
The if you just press F5, I guess I think it will like the,
F5.
yeah, or like
Mm-hmm.
Shift plus F5, I guess, or maybe.
Okay, let me just do.
Or you can just say set up a slideshow. Yeah.
Okay, I don't
It looks like it's in presenter mode already. If you just hit from beginning, it should.
Yeah, that's what I did. No
Okay.
worries.
Okay.
And I just do like turn on.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's okay.
Okay.
Well, happy Saturday, everyone, and thank you so much for coming on this wonderful and one of the kind healthcare summit. And thank you, Ambreen, Valerie, and Dr. You know, Agupti for really bringing all of us together on this transformative and needed now than ever. And for my topic is from a burnout to a breakthrough, how mindful leaderships in healthcare can change not only our lives personally, because if we don't heal within us, we cannot change the system. And I know that burnout, what led me personally to burnout is that we struggle to fit in the system that's broken, the system that is meant to supposedly help us heal, but instead, I myself, this is from my personal experience that I want to share with you, is that that's how it led to my own burnout, is that the struggle that it doesn't align with my value, what I've taught, and just a heart center of wanting to heal and help patients more. And the more that I'm more loving and kind and compassionate to my patients, because I've been there on their road and I understand, I have empathy for them, the more that you want to keep on doing. The more you do, the more you struggle to fight with the system, you will lead to your own burnout. And so these are where I want to share some light on how we can take back our power, but also heal ourselves and heal others around us. Mhm. So, as I was mentioning that, in our system, that we all talk about how we all hear, I think I'm not preaching to the choir of how broken our system globally has been, but we have to speak out and really address some of the issues and not stay quiet. Because when you stay quiet, you also believe that it's okay to treat our patients that way. It's okay to treat ourselves that way. So in order for us to heal globally and in the system, we have to take a step back and reflect. And how do we begin to heal within ourselves so that way we can have that healing ripple effects toward outside, toward our teams, our organizations, and in our global healthcare effect. Because when we heal and we really have that peace of mind also that you belong and this is where you're meant to be, and not just I'm having this struggle between having to fit in the system, but also fit in the metrics, the quotas and KPI and all those things, and you don't have time for it. That's where it leads to our burnout, and it shows to our patients. So I know that we use our SOAP framework for our healing burnout also because we want to use it as a subjective. How do we really get to the emotional truth for our clinicians and use the data on burnout? And how do we assess the root cause? So we have to really analyze and assess it. And what do we plan, the interventions that will fit for the individual and the system as a whole? A lot of times I see that a lot of clinicians, they struggle burnout, and myself is when they ask, how are you doing? The most often respond would be, I am fine. But I'm fine, I think most of the time is not really fine because you're behind. Yeah, I am okay for the moment. I'm struggling, but we don't want to, for some reason, healthcare professionals feel like we don't want to burden others because we have to be the strong one. We have to be the one that cannot show weakness because we have to heal others. And so that is the struggles in the individual clinician, is that healthcare professional feel like you cannot get sick. So when you get sick, you get ill, you get depressed, you get anxiety, any kind of symptom, then it seems like you're weak. But those are the signs that are not weak. It's just telling you, it's a signal that are you questioning yourself whether are you in the right place? Is this where my values, my purpose, and what is it that I'm here for? So it's questioning you, but if you're listening to those signals, then it will tell you. So those signals is not the weakness, but it's a signal and it's not a failure. So most of the time, the clinician and myself feel like, am I failing my patient? Am I failing myself or my colleagues? It's because you're getting those mixed signal that you have to be strong. And it's okay to recognize those signs. Those are the things that if you don't have self-reflection, self-kindness to yourself, then how would you be able to give that to others? So the compassion, the self-kindness needs to come first. When you recognize that, then you will understand and you will give it to others. And that's the collective ripple effect. When healers go, I think, were someone saying something? When clinicians, when our healers, our healthcare professional hurting, then the system as a whole cannot thrive. And some of the symptoms that you see on a subjective, on an individual level, is that the clinicians, want to do more, even though they are burning out. They're getting signals. They're getting some emotional burdens. And if you ever feel like a loss of purpose, questioning your own purpose, what is my purpose here? And do you have any guilt because you're struggling between making decisions of having to be there for your family and taking time off, or calling sick because you're ill, you're exhausted. Those are some of the behind closed doors that you're fighting, the quiet tears between your patients, that you struggle with. And so this stat on the burnout is huge. You know, on the Mayo Clinic, data show 63% of the physicians and over 49% of nurses have at least one symptoms of burnout. And what will that lead to? A lot of other things that we'll see. The system failing is that it will have high turnover of staff, compassion fatigue, and you will have loss of the institutional trust. You're going to lose that trust that, am I in this for the right place? Is this the moral, ethical? That's what I would question. So that your moral injury is that clinician will have to choose between their values and the system demands, the quotas and KPI and how many patients. So the cultures of silence that we have to stay, unspoken and not just keep on continuing the grind and not share our thoughts and our struggles. Those are not what's helping our system, individual, but our vulnerability and be willing to share our struggles when we are struggling in a collective and a safe spot. That's where is our strength, not as weakness. Most of the time it's shown as our vulnerability is our weakness, but it is not. And that's what something we have to change in the burnout. Clinicians' well-being in the system is all, when you see it, is that when we individually are having exhaustions, we are losing the empathy, you just numb. You go see patients and you just have a sense of decline, in a sense of that am I accomplishing what I'm going through school? And now I'm here X amount of years in this career. Is this what I'm wanting to do? You question your value, your purpose. And then you're having anxiety and you have insomnia. You cannot sleep well, not able to sleep peacefully, or you just have compassion fatigue. Those are some of the symptom sign that you see as the individual having burnout symptoms. And then what are the collective in the system and healthcare? It costs so much annually in the US, like healthcare, from study like 4.6 billion annually on burnout related turnover. So that's something that is huge, is a huge healthcare burden cost. And it's also costing when you have compassion fatigue. Another study shows that it links to 23% lower patient satisfaction if you have compassion fatigue. So when in healthcare system have high compassion score, they will have higher patient satisfaction. And another study shows that Harvard Business Review is interesting, but it's not, it is another thing that's always giving us burnout is the highest one. Burnout is the canary in the coal mine of dysfunction. So, all the studies really kind of shows that the problem isn't the weak clinicians, but the problem is the unhealthy cultures of our system. So the system having high turnover and the compassion fatigue and the loss of purpose, that's really frightening, and it will go up even more with, you know, all the technology and the things that are losing the people touch. Like, for instance, AI. We have to be careful on, is it using for mindfully for the patients in the human interaction and communications, and where someone is being heard, seen, and valued. Those are some of the things that is not being. So when we look at the root cause and to assess, individual, some of the things that we have to see is that there's a emotional suppression that we don't want to expose more of how we feeling of the moment of you questioning, do I show up when I have a sick kid at home, a family? I have to continue on this patience or lack of any renewed rituals. We want to strive, and a healthcare professional, we strive perfectionists, always trying to be perfect at everything. But life is not perfect. We're not perfect. No one's perfect. And when things have hiccups or something that doesn't go in our way, we seem to put it in our fault. It's our guilt. And that's also leading us to our burnout. And so we lose the disconnection between our purpose and our day-to-day activities, our from work, and it will lead to the system level of failure because our system always value, the productivity, the KPI over what is the purpose culture of a holistic approach. It has to be hierarchy leadership that with high psychological safety, most of the time is low. And there's not a built-in space for any reflections, any compassions, any renewed rituals. So it's missing, KPI always measure how efficient you're doing, but is it really measuring our well-being? So our KPI needs to also include our well-being, our measures of how happy we are. And do we have a sense of belonging and our value and our purpose? And so I would questions as a reflections to ourselves. Where have you abandoned yourself in the name of service? Do you feel like you have to struggle to make choices? I have to show up and I have to give up something. That's where you will find some of the gaps that we need to also work on and your struggles. And they're valid and it's not your fault. So the plan for the individual, I call it the healing prescriptions. That's using my pharmacist kind of, I see from a pharmacist perspective as a clinician, I see myself as a patient, but also how do we build small but powerful rituals that we change from burnout into our breakthrough. And it's simple. It's just starting with whether it's 1 minute to 5 minutes. We take really deep breathing in a quiet space, or even if you're walking meditations, or if you're just driving in a space that you have routine every day you build in that you want to do. And you would say like Om Mani Padme Hum. That is a mantra that will help you with more wisdom and compassion for yourself. Once you see, because everything, we got to reflect back on ourselves so we can heal ourselves. And you will see that the system will also heal because it will be affected by how you change. We always want to change the system, but until we change ourselves, we cannot change the big system. So that is how we would do, and that's something I think I don't know if anyone have done that before. Later on, I'm almost done. Maybe if you guys want to type in any in the chat, or later on we can have a discussion. On the individual, also we would like, for me, is that if we can practice the loving kindness meditations. How do we practice to have more loving kindness to ourselves, so that way we can have more for our family, for our team, for our organizations, and it will have a big ripple effect. Some people like to journal. You can journal some small wins or some proud moments, and keep the positivity, the mindset, keep going, and have a space to share one truth, whether it's a struggle, whether it's a whatever it is, but you have to have a safe space to share with your colleague, or if you have a friend, but you need to be able to open up to share. So being mindful and really have time for yourself to nurture your soul, you will reduce burnout. And there are studies by the Lancet that mindfulness interventions reduce burnout by 35% and boost resiliency by 28%. So it's not something that it seemed, because a lot of time for me, it seemed odd, but I'm here to say that I'm against a pill for an ill. So if there's anything holistic approach outside popping a pill, that is something that I totally endorse. And I'm not saying that there isn't a time and place for medicine, but not everything start with a pill. We have to assess and see what's needed, and then we have to carefully really pick and choose the risk and benefit and go forward, but also know that we have control to heal ourselves, and that's starting within us. And for the system as a collective healing prescriptions, how do we go from surviving as a system to thriving? We have to start with the leadership having the meetings with, whether it's let's have a huddle in the hospital or in your staff, to have a minute of stillness, to have a gratitude, or a monthly gratitude or shout out rounds to recognize staff. How do you recognize your staff that are doing wonderful, that are not seen and heard? They don't want to be, but you still want to recognize those staff. How about implementing a psychological safety practice to have a place that they can give, really anonymous feedback, and they don't feel like they can be jeopardized for telling the truth? You have to have a nurturing place. They can tell their stories and to vent, but that is where a safe place for our leaders to come together. How do we train our leaders in more emotional intelligence and having more higher compassion score as our core, measurement as a KPI, not just a metric and how many patients and how many. You will see that when we redefine what our success look like for our healthcare professional, along with the clinical outcomes, you will see that when you have well-round well-being inputted and having your compassion score increase and emotional intelligence increase, you see that all the turnover will go down. Your staff, you don't have to spend more money hiring new staff and train new staff. So with hospital having high compassion score, you will show that you have lower turnover and higher patient outcomes. So that's one of the study from the West. So there's lots of other studies for mindfulness and compassion that has reduced compassion fatigue in ICU nurse when we implement loving kindness and mindfulness, or when you use mindfulness-based interventions will lower emotional exhaustion. There's many others that improve not only connections, build resiliency, compassion. Training will reduce the burnout and stress. And don't we all experience stress, one shape or form in this 2025 and beyond, more than ever. And we really need more of coming back to ourselves, coming back home is what I call, because we have to come back home to ourselves. And so my call to action is really, how do we lead differently with love, with kindness and compassion? You know, for ourselves, we have to begin with the self-care. How do we embed one practice, whether it's once a week or 1 minute a day? Once you build that in your schedule, you cannot blame yourself and say, I don't have time. You have to build in time. You have to put yourself first, because imagine the system will continue on even without you. And this is something I know it's hard to say, but the reality is that no matter what, life will go on. That's the little, I guess we all heard of it, but sometimes we don't want to admit. We always think, even if I'm the most important, I have to show up. I'm the boss. I have to take care of my people. I have to take care of my patient. I have to. But if we do not have well-being and we're not around long, then how are we going to help our team? How are we going to help our patients? How are we going to help? And then coming back, are you going to be around for your families? So, and without you, you cannot lead a more impactful. So you have to take care of yourself. Come back to yourself. Make sure you're all well. You'll be stronger for your team. And for the team, how do we propose, having a healing practice for our next meeting, a gratitude round? Just start one small step, not big, major, just one. When you take in rounds with the new protocols, one gratitude of each week. What new things have we are grateful for? For our system, we have to redefine our leaderships. What does it look like around humanity, not just productivity? And that's something that we have to come back to, is that we are not powerless. We're powerful. But when we lead with love and kindness and compassion, with clarity and with courage, you would change burnout to breakthrough. And I believe that the future of healthcare begins within us, because every actions that we take, that we make, any interventions, we have to center around, is this the right way? Are we leading with love? Are we leading with kindness? Are we leading with compassion? If we put ourselves as the other person, the other patient, the other team member or colleague, or the system we're making decision for is the same way, that would change the future of healthcare, because that's what you're putting us in the center of. And so for the future, we have to stop adapting to the broken system and cannot stay quiet in the status quo. We have to start healing. And that healing starts with us now, today. We always want to say, I'm going to wait till tomorrow. I'm going to do this, then that. But we always need to, what if tomorrow doesn't come? We have to act like today is tomorrow. And that's how we change. So we cannot heal the system if we're bleeding out in silence. So I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. I've been there. I've gone to myself, even as a working mother of two, led my own sepsis and almost dying and coming back. that is something that really realized, gone through my own burnout and the system and where we struggle as a healthcare provider who are compassionate, caring, and loving for your patients and your family. I'm here to tell you that you're not weak. You know, you're wise, you're resilient, and you're worthy of healing. And that we can transform healthcare together from burnout to breakthrough. When we lead with love, when we lead with kindness, with so we have a sense of belonging, from feeling pressures into not just our pain from the pressure, but we're going to change that into our purpose. What are those pain points? And can we change that into our purpose? And we change the workflow. Can we change from the exhaustions and make that into a compassion? We can do it. And I believe not only in all that you do, and I appreciate everything that each and every one of you. Thank you for all you do for yourself, for your patients. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your healing and your leaderships. May your leadership always begin with mindful love, kindness, and compassion for yourself and others. And I believe that the future really begins with us, our leaders, each and every one of us. So, any questions? I know Embry, I see Darlene, Billy. There's
Yeah.
Stuart, Darlene.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Nu, for such an insightful presentation. And you're so right that it's, I mean, I love the fact that, we need to be less harsh on ourselves. We need to start taking care of ourselves first. And that is how we start to begin our healing. Like healing begins within. Uh, Maybe you can stop sharing the screen now, and then maybe we can open the floor for questions. If anyone has any other questions, so please ask, or we can continue our conversation that way. Yeah, sure, Apu.
Sure. Yeah, Dr. New, that was really interesting. And I really appreciated, I mean, the whole layout of it actually. So thank you for that. I guess my question to get to the point is, you mentioned that we should be measuring well-being in addition to some of the others. So is there a specific well-being index or measure that you recommend?
Um, well-being index. Let me think. Well, I would say when I look at as a system and look at when how when we do employee performance annual review, let's say when employee do their own self-evaluations, I would say embed in our workforce or like our team is having reflections, um, and within that we would categorize or have maybe 10 questions of well-being. And how do you feel? Do you feel valued and heard and seen, or are you exhausted, or do you feel like you don't have a safe place to talk? You have to embed other measure of well-being, not just performance, because when we do, like when I reflect on my own self-evaluation, let's say annual performance, or your boss metric, KPI, they measure you. You have to embed those in there so that way the employee can also have a reflection of their well-being. And within that, you would want to have it tailored so that way they have a measure of their well-being score, which is embedded in their annual performance review. Is another way that you can embed because um, most of the time we all seen it's a one directional. It's just your manager reviewing, are you performing based on X amount of KPI is, but not in the emotional aspect of their well-being. And that we can embed into their, am I answering right?
Yes, you are,
Not
but
specifically, but
unfortunately,
I think.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you were asking me a question. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was saying that I don't know if I answer in a way because that's more specific. I'm thinking because that's something I like to make intervention specifically. But I was saying I'm thinking in a general term, how if for a workplace, for a well-being, that's something that we can implement as a global,
Mm.
Yeah,
quick to be able to understand and identify without having too much of outside resource, but we can embed it and not much of cost effect into the system.
yeah.
I find that intriguing, and I don't want to hog the stage, but I do have a follow-up. I'm gonna, if it's too long of an answer, you and I can speak at some other point.
Yes.
But I find your suggestion intriguing. The question I have is if we embed it in the annual evaluation, will the employee feel safe enough to say how they're really feeling? Like if I know it's going to now go into my annual evaluation, am I going to say I don't feel safe or I feel burnt out or I feel at risk? So that's the probably the thought that's coming up for me. But if you've implemented this somewhere and have found it to be effective, I would really love to learn about that because I mean I think it's a brilliant suggestion. The question is how can we do it with some psychological safety?
Yeah. And one of the things I see is that it has to be coached and brought down from the high up, which is the leadership. We have to train our leaders to lead in a way so our staff, our people will be feel not intimidated or not scared of telling their truth because they feel like if they're telling their truth, they might get fired. And that's where all the employees, and I think that if we lead with a sense of integrity, that being honest is important, but also we take care of our people. When you really radiate that and lead that from getting to know your employee and getting to know what their pain points are to turn that into something that we can work together and grow, not as a weapon to use at anyone, then they see that as a safe place. But it's a tricky, but I that's how we would have to lead.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good answer, and I think that's a really good discussion because these are the points that we really need to bring up to the discussion so we can actually add this into the system. Darlene has a question. Darlene Shindo, right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And um, Dr. New, you nailed it. It's so interesting when you talk about performance reviews because in my very first role as a nurse manager, it was the thing I struggled with the most. Like it took me forever to do performance reviews, and I took it so seriously, and it frustrated me. And I think that the reason was because I'm thinking, well, who am I to give just to say, that they're what they're doing and all the rest of it. So what I came up with was I searched for like a self-evaluation because we were doing, unit goals and things like that. But then I found a tool and I had every one of them prepare a self-evaluation so that when they sat down with me, yes, I had some prepared information, but I said, okay, Ambreen, we're gonna let's talk about you and the ball's in your court. So now the pressure's off me and I get to listen and you are in control. So you get to, share like what's going on, what your goals are, and then I can reflect back to you. And it's interesting because over the years now with the coaching that I've done with nurses, do you know how many nurses in healthcare haven't had a performance review for a very long time? And I'm
Wow.
sure it's system wide in other areas, but I had an executive in continuing care say to me, well, I have 140 employees. How am I going to do that? And if David Dibble were here, he'd say, well, that's a systems problem.
Mhm.
Because okay, so if I have 140 employees, I would say to Henrietta and New and Apurva and Darlene, I say, okay, each one of you, you have these. 10 people, these are your 10 people. So we come up against these issues that are like up here, and then we never do anything about it. And so we never move forward, and people never, get to express what they bring, what their gifts are, what they'd like to do. And after that little incident that started happening, then I started reflecting, well, I get to tell them and listen to them what they're all about, but I wonder what they think about me as a leader. So again, I kind of searched around and I found we were kind of getting into Lean and Six Sigma and all that stuff back in the day, but I found a tool and I had them do anonymous evaluation of me. And what I learned was the number one thing that they mentioned in their in review of me is that they trusted me. Now, as a new young leader, how do you think that made me feel? I mean, if anything, leadership is about trust. And I thought, oh my gosh, I must be doing something right. But that only happened down here at the grassroots level in a huge hospital, a huge hospital, downtown, high needs, like, and so again, it doesn't happen up here. It happens right with that first line man, that first person, and that connection is so important. Thank you so much, New. That was amazing.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you for
thank you.
sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I think Henrietta also has a question. We can just quickly wrap up. Okay.
Yes, so
Uh,
actually, to Apur's question about the employee well-being, there are many tools and surveys that companies actually use these days. I personally worked with some even startups developing and some really cool like employee well-being assessments using really cool tools and ways of approaching it. The problem is very often is the implementation. So doing a survey can be very easy, but what do we do with the data? And that's on the company's leadership. Because collecting all this data and they just sit on it, it's very similar to performance reviews, and very often it's just a routine every year, and it's never gets addressed. And so and it's very similar to also you were talking about Dr. Nuda about the mindfulness practices and meditation and so on. So that's also my last when I worked for my last like big healthcare employment medical school. We started having they started like meditation sessions, mindfulness sessions, and people very often just go through the motions and they go home or they leave and they just engage in the same unhealthy lifestyle and they even forget the insights. So again, we need to keep in mind, and the bigger challenge is to educate, to figure out how to actually get to the next step. What do we
yeah.
do with this?
Yes, yes, wonderful. So thank you so much, I guess, because now the next session is in 15 minutes. So we have a 15 minutes break, and the next session will be for I think, Michelle Stefano. So let's have a break for 15 minutes, and we'll see you after 15 minutes.